All right, you're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast as a Friday edition. We're looking at the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women set aside by the United Nations. Our guest in our Abuja studio is Oluwakemi Gbadamosi. She's Senior Manager PR and Communication, AIDS Healthcare Foundation Africa. Oluwakemi, you were trying to explain to us exactly how serious the non-physical abuse or violence against women is, looking at psychological and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times people actually feel that you have to hit someone before it can be constituted as a form of violence or abuse. But that's not the case, because the emotional and mental abuse are usually deemed to actually be as bad, if not worse, than physical abuse. And that's because a lot of the things that people say to other people in terms of maybe abusing them goes to the core of their psychic. And what it does is that it attacks their self-esteem, attacks their self-worth. And that's why you have cases where a lot of women, even young women and girls, have remained even in violent relationships, violent marriages, just because they are made to believe that they cannot be anything, or there's nothing much to think about themselves. So a lot of times you see situations where, just like you gave an example where you say someone says, I would slap you, especially in the heat of an argument. The fact that it's already come to the person's mind to do that shows that they might as well go through even with their threats. You have cases where, a lot of times you see cases where women complain about their spouse or even their boyfriends or whatever it is, telling them and saying, if you go away from here, no one is going to want you, no one is going to have you, you are no good, you can't achieve anything, you can't accomplish anything, and even go as far as attacking their family background, go as far as attacking the fact that maybe they were the ones who helped the lady up, and so things like that. Although you are not using your fist, but what you're doing is you're attacking the person's self-esteem. You're attacking the person's self-worth. And when someone doesn't have self-worth, when they don't have self-esteem, it's almost difficult for them to be able to accomplish anything, because every time your words re-echo in their minds that they can't be anything outside of you, they cannot accomplish anything, they are up to no good. And when you, in the field where I work, which is around HIV/AIDS, when you interact with young women and girls who are HIV positive, one of the challenges they always spotlight is the fact that they have low self-esteem. And that's because of how people tend to react to them when they find out that they are positive. So we need to always learn to know that abuse is not only limited to when you hit someone or when you punch someone. Even the words you say, to a large extent, has great impact on how people perceive themselves, in this case, women. And we see that happen all the time. Even, for example, where a single woman is not married and gets into an argument with someone, or even a man, we have that a lot in the country, and someone says, oh, look at you, that's why no one would marry you. Now, things like that seem harmless on the surface, but they also constitute forms of abuse as well, because you're indirectly saying the person has a problem. That's why they've not been able to accomplish something.
All right, Kemi, we'll come back to you shortly. The International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women is set aside to raise public awareness on issues of violence against women and mobilizing people everywhere to bring about change.
Now, to commemorate this day, the UN will, from today, November the 25th to December 10th, which is the Human Rights Day, observe 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign to galvanize action to end violence against women and girls around the world. So let's give you some statistics.
Yeah. Now, the UN defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercing or coercion rather, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life.
And violence against women includes, but is not limited to, gender-based violence, rape, marital rape, yes, that's a very, very important one, and incest. murder and assault, including dowry-related violence and honor killings, forced marriage, female genital mutilation, human trafficking, including cross-border prostitution rings and bride kidnappings.
War crimes, including rape as a weapon of war, is part of it. Now, 1 in 3 women around the world has experienced physical or sexual violence in their lifetime, often in the hands of someone they know, love, and trust. It is estimated that 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or sexual violence by a non-partner at some point in their lives.
And almost 1/3, that is 30% of women worldwide who have been in a relationship report that they have experienced some form of physical and or sexual violence by their intimate partner in their lifetime. According to research by the World Health Organization, violence against women worldwide is shockingly common and is one of the leading factors in female injury, death, and poor health worldwide. Violence can negatively affect women's physical, mental, sexual, and reproductive health and may increase vulnerability to HIV.
All right, it is estimated that of all women who were the victims of homicide globally in 2012, almost half were killed by intimate partners or family members. Now, more than 25% of women in Nigeria have experienced some form of violence. Excuse me. Now, the most common being domestic violence, like we know it in the country. In the past decade, about 40,000 women in war-ravaged Democratic Republic of Congo have experienced some of the most brutal and rampant rapes.
And while in the U.S., intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crimes committed in the country. Now, that's according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. According to new estimates published on the United Nations International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation in 2016, at least 200 million women and girls alive today have undergone female genital mutilation, or FGM, cutting in 30 countries, with most of the girls cut before the age of 5. And that means, of course, Mike, that, after the age of 5, many of these girls don't even know that they have already been exposed to, violence. To
different kind of risks as well.
Yes, indeed. And adult women account for almost half of all human trafficking. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. Let's bring in Oluwakemi here. Now, speak to the fact that the perpetrator is usually the woman or the person, the girl or the woman actually loves or trusts. Doesn't that, really further complicate this issue in such a way that you find that many women who find themselves in that situation cannot even talk about it because it's either their father or their uncle or even a brother in some instances?
Yes, actually, it is true. And when you look at the statistics, it's actually very chilling. But part of the problem is usually around our traditional and religious society that we have. You see women who have been violated either sexually or through domestic violence or whatever it is, tend to have some kind of shame because there is this notion that if you come out to talk about it, if you come out to say that, oh, you've been violated by your husband or by your boyfriend, someone that you love, there is a tendency that people are not going to believe you. And because of how high we hold marriage in our communities or in our society, it makes it even more difficult because you have cases where people come to complain and say, oh, I have been violated by my spouse or, my boyfriend or anything like that. And people say, oh, no, you need to just go back. It's part of the norm. But that is where the problem is. Violence of any kind cannot be part of the norm. It is not a norm anywhere in the world. And now more women are beginning to speak up. But because of the shame that is attached to it, of, oh, okay, I walked out of my marriage because I was being violated against. How would people look at me? They'll probably think I'm a failure at this. And that's what the society needs to disabuse its mind from. We need to learn to encourage women to speak up when they're violated against. The downside of it is that when women do not speak up or victims of sexual or gender-based violence do not speak up, you strengthen and empower the perpetrator. But when women start to speak up and women start to speak to the issues like we're beginning to do now, it weakens the power of the perpetrator to want to even commit more harm. And sometimes even the law enforcement agencies also contribute to this, because women tell you that they go to maybe the police station to report a rape or to report some form of domestic violence, and the police tells you, oh, it's a family affair. It really has nothing to do with us. Now, that is also another societal issue that we have. Abusing someone cannot be just a family affair. It is a society's business. And I think it's because we've been so quiet for so long. That is why now whenever you turn around, you see really barbaric cases of even domestic violence where women have been killed just trying to endure a marriage so that the society doesn't look at you sideways. So the challenge is we have societal norms, we have traditional norms, we have religious norms that indirectly fuel gender and sexual violence across our country.
Yeah,
and we need to also
Oluwakemi, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's so much we can take from there right now. Oluwakemi Badamasi of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation Africa. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you so much.
And right now we'll be going out on TVC Entertainment, but viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria, on Constat Channel 190 and DSTV Channel 418.
And Go TV 45, ACTV 510 is or other stations where you can continue to enjoy the show. Stay with us.